All right, welcome back everyone. This is the engine bay of my new Subaru. It's a 2023 Crosstrek. I am now at my break-in oil change. I meant to do this at about 500 miles, but I'm currently at, I think, 626 miles. And if you give and take a little bit, it doesn't really matter too much when you do it. Just do it nice and early. So I'm going to do an oil change at nominally 500 miles. Then nominally probably 2,000 miles, maybe 2,500 miles, and then I'll do my next oil change at 5,000, and that'll be it. It'll just be 5,000 from there on out. So for this oil change, I'm going to be going with the Mazda. It is the part number N3R114302. This is the same exact filter, as I understand, as the one that comes off. So this is the original Subaru oil filter. The part number in this is 15208AA160. This, as I understand, is the same exact filter as the Mazda filter. They're both made by Tokyo Roki. This thing was on so tight that I had to use my Nipex adjusting wrench to get this thing off. That's how tight it was. It does not need to be that tight when you put the new one back on. That's probably just a factory thing. But yeah, I had to be a little abusive. So this is never going back on now. So I used a paper towel and wiped around any excess oil that dripped from the original filter. And I did get a few silver shavings. I don't know if that's just from the engine wear or if that's still junk left in the engine from manufacturing. But it was good to see that there was something there. I mean, it's bad to see any metal shavings on or near an engine, but it's good to note that they were there, at least. The factory engine oil is 0W20. However, that's only for the US market, and I believe it's for emissions purposes. I'm going to be putting some 5W30 in this, even though I'm in a very cold climate. I'm back in Minnesota. 530 is plenty good for this engine. I always let it warm up until that blue light on the dash goes off before I drive it. So that's something that I don't think is going to be too big of a deal. And I always park inside, and that really helps for cold starts. At risk of being controversial about oil, because everyone has their own opinion, this is the oil that I'm going to be going with. It is a 5W30 API SP grade oil. I've used Castrol Edge in all my cars for a long time. When it comes to oil, if what you're using works for you, just keep using it. The process of putting in fresh oil regularly is much more important than the actual oil brand that you choose. It is a full synthetic oil, and as you can see here on their, I think they call this the donut logo, it is API SN. Is it SP or SN? Okay, so maybe this is kind of in between, because here it says API Service SP, but it's listed here as SN+. But on here it says API SP, but without that special branding logo thing, the licensed logo. So I'm going to call this officially an SN+ oil, but they're trying to be sneaky and make it SP. Castrol, shame on you for that. Regardless, this will be still a good oil to use. You can also use the stuff from Subaru, the factory oil, if you can source that. Or you can just have your oil serviced at the dealer. It's up to you. I'm going to prefer just doing it myself. So this is the oil drain plug. It's painted on both sides. And something that is another also kind of tricky here is, if you weren't looking carefully, you wouldn't notice that the crush washer is here because it was stuck because of the paint. But I just took my O-ring pick and was able to pick in between the threads and the inside diameter of that crush washer. And then it separates real nicely. So be very careful about that, and make sure you get a new crush washer. Here's the box from the oil filter that I chose. Again, this is the Mazda oil filter. You can see the part number. So this is a genuine filter because on the box it just has the dots of glue that hold the lid on. And then on the On the filter, it just had the little covering, the plastic covering, to cover the front face or the mounting face of the filter. It didn't cover the whole filter. So I do know this is a genuine Tokyo Roki filter. These crush washers are sold separately, and they just go on like that. I'm not sure if it matters which way the crush washer goes. By the looks of it, the smaller rounded part goes towards this end. The wider, flatter part goes towards the head. So I'm going to go ahead and reinstall this, and then we'll take a look at the used oil. All right, I can't really focus on it, and I can't get the lighting set up right so you can see it, but I can assure you that there are some shimmers of metal in this oil. It's not a lot. It's about what I would expect for brand new oil out of a brand new engine. So I'm glad I'm changing this now, and I will probably, because of this, change the next oil sooner rather than later, if I'm honest. So I'll maybe try and get a picture of this and not a video of it, and I'll put that up now if I can get it to look right. If not, well, you know what metal and oil looks like. All right, so at this point, I'm going to pre-fill my filter just a little bit. This doesn't take much. The way that I do it is with these canister filters is in the interior portion that's inside the filter media, I just kind of fill it up to roughly halfway, and then as it kind of flows through the filter media to the outside of the canister, I just rotate it around and make sure it's wetted. I don't want it full, I just want the filter media wet. Then I'm going to double check that the mating surface is clean, and that there's just a little bit of oil on that O-ring. Then flip it upside down real quick, spin it on, and that's all it needs right there. That is more than enough clamping load to make sure that it's not going to leak. If it does, for whatever reason, leak a little bit, just tighten it up a little bit more. If you tighten it up a little bit more and it keeps leaking or leaking badly, it's possible that either the original O-ring has stuck to the faceplate, which hopefully you would have noticed that, or maybe the O-ring that came on your new filter is damaged or it got pinched somehow. That's extremely unlikely. I've never had that happen to me, but it could. So just verify that the oil is not leaking severely. This engine takes 4.7 quarts of oil when you change the oil and the filter. That is according to the manual. I'm going to be putting in about 4.5 to 5, somewhere in there, right in the nice happy medium. If it's a little over full, well, as I understand it, these Subarus, and because I had a Forester before, they are a little pickier than most engines I've experienced in terms of under or overfilling. So do your best to make sure it's actually at the full mark and not much over, if any. So there are many different ways that you can get the oil into the engine. You can just pour it straight. What I prefer to do is go the cheap reuse method and just take the top off a bottle. This happens to be like a fruit juice bottle, and it almost matches the factory thread perfectly, where it'll just kind of tighten in there and wedge itself in. And this is more than enough for trying to pour in the new oil. Also, I did shake up the oil thoroughly before this, just to make sure that any parts of the additive package that may have fallen out of suspension, while it was sitting on the shelf, have gotten mixed back in. All right, I'm going to start out with that. I've got about half a liter left, half a quart. Before I get too carried away, I don't recall what the spec is for the oil drain plug. Offhand, I think it's something like 30 foot-pounds. I'll put that here somewhere just so you can have that. That is also according to the manual. All right, so I'm going to start it, let it run for a few seconds, and then turn it off, and then let it sit for a few minutes, and then we'll see if the oil level is correct. All right, that was actually quite convenient. When I turned the engine on, it had that blue light on the dash to say that it was in its warm-up mode. And after, as you saw, just a few seconds, it idled down into its normal mode. And I don't see any leaks. I'm gonna look underneath the car to see if I notice any leaks. Otherwise, that sounds good. And in about 5 minutes, I'm gonna go and check the oil level. All right, let's see what we got. I don't even know what I'm looking at. There's no, right, there's a dot down here. There's a dot up here, but there's no writing on what means full or low. So I'm gonna make an assumption that that's low and that's full. The manual did say that the difference between the high mark and the low mark is 1.1 quarts. That is quite a long range, and 1.1 quarts is quite a lot. So I'm gonna say it's probably about right. Let's see if that's true. All right, we're halfway between full and empty. Let's add some more oil. You know, at this point, there's only like that much oil left in this thing. I'm tempted to just throw it all in. Tempted. But I will hold off on that temptation for now. I'll let it be. So at this point, I think I'm gonna call it good for the video. I will double check the oil quantity again because I wanna make sure that it's actually right. And this video is not supposed to be a how-to or a step-by-step. It's just showing you what a break-in oil change is gonna look like on one of these cars. And you know what it looks like? Almost exactly the same as every other oil change. I think overall, that little bit of metal in the oil, not a big deal. I'm not concerned about it, but it's something I will definitely be keeping my eye on. My CRF 250L, the Honda dual sport motorcycle I have, for the first 2 oil changes, that had some shimmery flakes in the oil. But once I got to that 3rd oil change, it went away. So that's something I think is reasonable to expect on a car as well, just as all the parts from both manufacturing and any metal that wears as the engine breaks in are gonna start coming out, and hopefully the oil filter will catch it. If not, the point of doing these oil changes so soon is to get all that stuff out of there so it doesn't continue to wear the engine away. So with that, I will leave it there. If there's anything I missed, I'll probably throw it in the video description. And otherwise, until next time, see ya.